Hello, everybody. I am Sarah Younger, and I am joined today by two of my wonderful and lovely authors, Miss Jessie Mihalik and Miss Jeffe Kennedy. We're here today to talk about, well, it was supposed to be an in-person celebration at the Ripped Bodice, but since we can't get together in person, we're going to get together virtually. Yay! To celebrate two upcoming releases. So we have The Fiery Crown by Jeffe Kennedy, and we have Chaos Reigning by Jessie Mihalik. I'm sure you can see their covers in the background. I will give you a quick little intro about each of them, and then we'll get started. So Jeffe Kennedy is an award-winning best-selling author who writes fantasy with romantic elements and contemporary romance. She serves on the board of directors for Sephwa as a director at large. Her most recent release, well, it's getting ready to be The Fiery Crown. She's a hybrid author and also self-publishes romantic fantasy. Her books have won RT Reviewers' Choice Awards for Best Fantasy Romance in 2015. She was named the Best Book of June in 2014 and won the Rita in 2017. So this is super exciting. She lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico, so that's where she's calling in from, with her Maine Coon cats, a plentiful of free-range lizards, and a very handsome doctor of Oriental medicine. Jeffe can be found online at her website at jeffykennedy.com every Sunday on the SFF7 blog, Tongue Twisters, on Facebook, on Goodreads, and on Twitter. And she's represented by me. I'll tell you who I am later. Okay, and next up we have Jessie Mihalik, who has a degree in computer science and a love of all things geeky. A software engineer by trade, Jessie is the reason why we are able to do this today. She now writes full-time from her home in Texas. When she's not writing, she can be found playing co-op video games with her husband, trying out new board games, or reading books pulled from her ever-flowing bookshelves. Polaris Rising was her debut novel, and we're now talking about the third book in that trilogy. And Jessie can be found at her website, jessymihalik.com, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. So going from there, before we dive in, I will give you all a quick heads up as to how this chat is going to be structured, and then also let you know that I am Sarah Younger. I am Jessie and Jeffy's agent at the Nancy Host Literary Agency, and I am joining you from the wilds of New York City. So we're going to go ahead and get started on this conversation. We have about 10 prepared questions where both Jessie and Jeffe will answer. And then I have a lightning round, which they haven't seen yet. So let's go ahead and get started. Question number 1, you both have new releases this month. This is why we're doing this chat. Can you each tell me the title, what it's about, and give viewers the quick and dirty? Let's start with Jessie.
Okay, so I have Chaos Reigning coming out on May 19th, and it is the third book in my Consortium Rebellion series. And in the second book, one of the brothers of the main house goes missing. And so in this book, the youngest daughter has decided that it's going to be her job to figure out who did it and why. And nobody thinks that she's capable because she presents as like this bubbly socialite, but she's going to prove them all wrong.
Yay. And it's awesome too. I can't wait.
Yay.
The Fiery Crown is the second book in the Forgotten Empires trilogy. First book was The Orchid Throne, wherein Sarah's going to hold it up. Oh, I thought you asked. With the shiny on the cover.
It's beautiful.
It really is. It's a story of an embattled queen who is forced to marry a rebel king. He's sort of fighting to take vengeance on this oppressive empire, and she just wants to save her kingdom. So at the end of Orchid Throne, which I feel like is not spoilery, is they are forced into a marriage of convenience. So the second book is all about them trying to figure out how to get along with each other, which they don't do terribly well. They are compared to two bulls in a small pen by some of the people in her court. And then also they have the emperor looming over them, coming to punish her and conquer him and so forth. And so they're having to figure out how they can possibly fight this battle.
Crazy. So I'm going a little bit out of order for question 2 because I think that question 3 ties in a little bit better. So we'll start with Jeffy on this one. This is the second book in your series. How did you keep the story going and keep readers engaged to kind of avoid that, what sometimes people call as a saggy middle book? But I know from reviewers and everything like that, that is absolutely not the case. So what did you do to keep things going? And then I'll go to Jessie.
Well, I think one trick to avoid middle book syndrome is not to hold back. I got that advice a whole long time ago when I first started writing, which is not to save stuff. If you have a great idea or you have a great event, you don't save it for something later. George R. Martin gave Melinda Snodgrass the same advice. We were talking about that the other day, where he said, don't hold on to your silver bullet. Mm-hmm. And because you are always going to have ideas for more stuff later. So I just put everything into that second book that I thought would be fun and exciting and cool. And I think the other piece that is important is to make sure that that middle book is a complete story, that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, because it's kind of tempting to have that, like the first book in a trilogy be the beginning, and the third book in the trilogy be the ending, and then that sort of makes that middle book sort of be like the Two Towers, right? Where, you know, they're just running around gathering horses and eagles and stuff.
Yep. So good. Okay, Jessie, as you mentioned, this is the third book for you in a trilogy arc. How was it like to wrap up the Consortium Rebellion series?
It was a little bit bittersweet, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I love the way that it ended, and I am not a huge plotter, so I kind of had like an overall really super generic idea of how the overall story arc would go over the 3 books. But each book follows a different couple, so they're all their own little individual stories, but then they tie into this overall story. And so when I finally like hit on exactly what was going to happen this book, I was like, oh, I love this, but also this is like the end, and I have to say goodbye to these characters for now. And like trying to get it, I wanted to wrap it up in such a way that everybody feels super satisfied with the 3-book arc, but also maybe leave like a tiny little door open that if I wanted to write future books, there's still some ability there. So I loved it. And going into it, I thought it was going to be impossible because it is like writing the end, but I think it turned out okay, but I'm obviously biased. So I enjoyed it.
And we're going to try. Yeah, and I'm not going to spoil anything. We're not going to spoil. Okay, to switch gears a little bit to talk about just general writing, and we'll come back to these books. I have a question for you both. So, being an insider to both of you all's career, the question that I have for you all is, I know that both of you all have either written books or tested writing books in other genres. So why fantasy romance for your series, Jeffy? And then why sci-fi romance for yours, Jessie? Like, was there a particular draw where you felt like these characters and this world lended itself for those genres, or did you write specifically to it? Any thoughts there?
Well, you want me to start?
Yeah.
One of my favorite tropes is the marriage of convenience. And I love me a good political marriage and enemies to lovers, which is difficult to pull off in many contemporary genres because it's hard to make believable reasons for that people have to get married, you know? But fantasy lends itself to that. It's like, you know, in fantasy, it's like, yes, to defeat the evil emperor, we must marry each other. And, you know, and you can have the kings and queens and you can have the magic and the high stakes that way. So also, I just love both fantasy and romance. And so for me, this is my perfect blend of chocolate and peanut butter.
Jessie?
For me, it started with Polaris Rising, and I was trying to write the sequel to a trunked novel. And I was having such trouble with it. And a writer friend of mine is like, have you thought about writing some other genre or some other book, giving me some like super excellent advice? Like maybe don't write the sequel to a book you haven't sold or agented or anything yet. And I'd had this persistent like thought of the opening scene of Polaris Rising. So where Ada's being captured and she's kicking the mercenaries, but I had been like completely ignoring it because, you know, ideas happen all the time and I was going to finish this thing that I had started. And so when my friend gave me this advice, I was like, oh. And she actually said, she's like, have you thought about sci-fi? Like, you would be excellent at writing sci-fi. And I was like, can you see into my mind? Like, so I started writing it and then it just like poured out. So, and I love science fiction romance. Like Jeffy, I love science fiction, I love romance, and so smushing them together was a complete no-brainer for me.
Oh, now I need Reese's. Jesus. I have none in my apartment. Okay, so on to the next one. So what was the writing process like for both of you for each of these books? And what was the editing process? I'm going to give a quick shout out to Tessa and Jenny, and you guys can do it, but yay for amazing editors. But was it, you know, was writing, like, did it flow or was it like pulling teeth? And then the same question for the editing process, was it more or less? Talk to me.
Writing for Chaos was chaos. It went really slowly. I actually had to ask for a month extension on my deadline because the middle, like, I wasn't super clear on exactly where I was going. And so I was, I kind of used the flashlight method, like you go and you see and then you move. And so I had such trouble with it. And then I went to RWA's national convention last July, and my book was due like 2 weeks later or something. And I was sort of on track to hit it, but also like sort of not. But then I came home from RWA and I wrote 17% of the book in 4 days. Like,
wow.
I don't know if it was just like I absorbed all the other writer energy there, or like my subconscious had time to figure out exactly where I was going. But I have yet to reproduce that amount of writing at all. So I did hit that deadline and got it in, and then the editing process wasn't too bad, actually. There was a few things that I needed to add. I love Tessa Woodward. She's my editor. She always makes the book so much better. And one of the things that she requested was more kissing, because Katerina was so busy like saving the world that she and Alex were like dashing around, and Tessa was like, this is good, but maybe add some more kissing. And I was like, done. So.
Love it. Okay, Jeffy. I think it's funny that Sarah's laughing because Sarah's always like saying that to me about my books. It's like, can we have more kissing?
My favorite note.
So Fiery Crown, I'm trying to remember because it feels like I wrote it so long ago. And I just finished writing the third book, and turned that in a couple weeks ago. So that's kind of in my head. But Fiery Crown was interesting because I turned it in a little short. I am like you, Jessie. I am, write for discovery kind of writer. And I wrote that book and I kept feeling like actually it was being too much about Khan and Leah. I kept finding myself in these scenes where they were, sort of having these fiery, bantering arguments with each other that ended up in sex. And, I was like, is it too much of this? I need to be, like getting back to this big battle. But, the two of them were just, that was how they were. And the first book was like 110,000 words. And when I turned in Fiery Crown, I turned it in at like 89,000. And I knew my ending was kind of raggedy. My endings are always raggedy on the first draft. And my editor is Jenny Conway. And I knew that Jenny would have input because she's a really insightful editor. She's the best editor I've worked with. She's just great. And so I thought, okay, and I sent it to her. And I said, okay, the ending is thin, but, I need to step away from it for a while anyway. And I'm sure you'll have input. And so I had expected her to have input, but she ended up having a lot of input. and it was at the beginning too. And it was like all of the scenes that I felt like I was going on too long with the banter. She's like, we want more of this. So we're back with Sarah. She's like, this scene is great, but make it longer. You ended it too soon. And she wanted me to bring a lot of the secondary characters up more towards the beginning. And so I ended up adding, I think I ended up cutting like 5,000 words and adding 30,000 words on the developmental edit, which my developmental edits are always adding words, but that was a lot. And it really did, it came out so much better. It was really, she really helped that book shine.
Yay. So much to love. I'm a big fan. Okay, so question number 5. I found this when I was looking up questions on another, and I don't know if you guys hear the reverb, but hopefully not. I found this when I was looking up author questions, and it was, do you guys plant any secrets or Easter eggs in your books that readers should look out for? Either ties to maybe other series or other worlds, or maybe a tie to a past character in a past book that might be coming through. Do you all hide any Easter eggs?
I hide some Easter eggs. I hide some pop culture Easter eggs a lot. So naming is something that I'll hide Easter eggs. And of course, I do the sequel baiting where it's like you see this person and they have a little conflict. And so, but I don't have a wide enough like number of books yet to really Easter egg into other worlds or other whatever, but kind of internally I have some.
Ooh. Okay, Jeffy.
I do it a fair amount. And a lot of them are like little private jokes to myself. So they are references back to books I read growing up, to other fantasy novels or something like that. And a lot of them are things like I do them because it amuses me when I'm writing, and I don't know if anybody else will ever get them. And sometimes people pick up on them. And sometimes, yes, I make little references to my other series, or even to some of my friends' books. I'll throw in like a random thing that's like going past that would like be totally from their world. And those are fun.
I'm now like, I need to know all of the Easter eggs, but you guys know that I'm really nosy, so I'll stop. But I'm like, gosh, I have to reread everything. But I won't, not right now. Okay, moving on to the next question. Okay, so this is for your current heroes and heroines. So we have Con and Leah, and why am I always want to say Locke and Ada, but it's not Locke and Ada.
Katerina and Alex.
Okay, Katerina and Alex, I swear I know who they are. Okay, so this is going to be a pick your poison round. So what would your characters, your hero and your heroine, what would be their drink of choice if we were all going out to a bar, RIP, going out to a bar because of COVID? But what would be, like, if we were all going, I would, like, you know, I'm going to either order something with mezcal or red wine. What would you drink? And then what would your characters be ordering?
Am I going first?
Sure.
Well, I think Leah and I would both be ordering champagne. She would get much more expensive champagne because being a queen, she can afford it. And Con would probably stick with like a whiskey.
Solid.
No surprises there. Yeah.
Yeah, if it was me ordering, I would probably order hard cider or red wine if they don't have hard cider. Katerina, if she was in her public persona, would definitely have champagne. If she was just hanging out with friends or whatever, she'd probably have like a beer or maybe like a fruity cocktail. And Alex would definitely be in like the beer or the whiskey sort of something there.
Both. I would drink it all. Okay, I'll stop. I'm not a lush. Like, I'm not. Okay. So we touched on this a little bit earlier, but how long in general did it take you to draft this particular book, and how long does it take you all normally? So we'll start with Jessie this time, since I think it's easier than us trying to figure out who's going first.
I actually did a little blog post on my drafting process for this book. So I know precisely that it took me 165 days because Scrivener has a word count tracker that like counts how many words you do every day and how long you've been working on it. And the reason it took me 165 days is there were some lulls in there because I would get edits for Aurora Blazing, or I got edits for Queen's Advantage. And then there was the 4 days of massive productivity at the end. But normally it takes me about 6 months. I would like 9 months, generally speaking, to kind of wander my way through the story. And that's including like polishing time after it's done. So that's not just straight rough draft. For this one, that was 165 days of straight rough draft, and then basically 2 weeks of super abbreviated edits before I sent it in. But yeah, 6 to 9 months would be ideal for me.
Yeah. Okay, Jeffy.
So I don't use Scrivener, I write in Word, but I am also the spreadsheet queen, and I keep all of that. You know, Sarah's like, I'm always bugging Sarah about little niggly details on my royalty statements. I'm like, I was running the math on this, and
But hey, I can look through them, and I love your spreadsheets. I'm a fan of the spreadsheets, so no shade there. But I'm gonna let you get back to your drafting.
So I've got my Excel spreadsheet, and I can look back, and I'm a pretty fast drafter. I write about 3,000 words a day, 5 days a week. And so the first draft of, when I should have looked at this number before, but the first one came out just shy of 82,000 words when I turned it into Jenny, and that took me 35 days to write.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I'm pretty focused when I'm drafting. And then the developmental edits took me 19 days, and I cut 5,000 words and added 23,000 words. And then after that, I did another round of revisions because I'd added so much to that first draft. And so I spent 11 days and ended up adding another 10,000 words on that final revision.
I mean, Jeffy, like, it blows my mind. Like, it blows my mind. The thing is, like, I don't know if everybody knows this, but I definitely do not write books. Like, I read them, I love them, I get feedback, but I definitely don't. And so it blows my mind that you're able to do that. I mean, also, Jessie, I will say it blows my mind that you're able to do it in 167, because here I am going on 32 plus years with 0 words on the novel, but also 0 characters.
And for me, I've been writing for a long time, too. I mean, I've written a lot of books and series, and I've got my process refined. And I also do this full time, and I don't have kids, and, you know, I have a pretty peaceful lifestyle. So all of that really helps being able to produce the word count like that.
Yeah, but still, it's amazing. Okay, so next question is, you both write in non-contemporary genres, at least for these respective series, because I know that Jeffy does have contemporary series. What kind of research did you have to do for your books, or does it all come from your lovely imaginations? And Jeffy, are you game to go first?
Sure. The answer in general is that it mostly comes from my imagination. I started writing later in life, and I have a graduate degree in zoology and physiology, and a lot of academics stuffed into my head. So, that's why there tends to be a lot of stuff about ecology and biology in my books, but that just kind of comes out because it has been there. And I mean, I'll look up things every once in a while, but one of my rules for staying on track on drafting and producing the word count is that only writing counts as writing. And so research doesn't count as actually writing. So a lot of times if I don't know something along the way, I'll just put it in square brackets in the draft. And then I go back and search those things out. And that's when I can look things up. Or sometimes in the early stages, like when Sarah and I were working up this trilogy to begin with, I did some research, just sort of fleshing things out for what I wanted.
And pretty pictures.
pretty pictures.
Okay, Jessie, any research, any fun stuff that you look up?
I do a lot of research because mine is set in space, and I don't know that much about space and faster than light travel and the possibilities. Like in my book, it's sort of hand wavy, but I did a lot of research to see if it was even possible, and how stars and planets and the astros move. And so I did a lot of like technical research that then most of it you don't see. Like you do a lot of ground sort of building, world building research that just sort of like maybe like one sentence. Like I'll spend a morning doing a deep dive on something for one sentence. And yes, that does not count as writing time. That does count as research time. And then you fall in the Wikipedia hole and you're like, where was I? Who am I? What is going on? So I tend to do a lot of research on science things, and things that are not science-based is all imagination.
Nice. Okay. Next up is, what surprised you most about writing this book? So we'll start with Jessie.
I think probably the ending actually surprised me the most, because I had kind of such a loose outline of where I thought I was going to go, but I needed to wrap up a 3-book series, and this is my first time doing it. And so I was muddling through the middle, and then the end, after RWA, the end just sort of fell out of my head. And I was like, yes, this is exactly what I was planning the whole time. I just didn't know it. And so I really liked the way that it ended, and I didn't know when I was starting exactly how that was going to go. So I think the ending is most surprising for me.
Same question, Jeffy.
Yeah, I can't think of an answer that's not spoilery. I knew that something very dramatic was going to happen at the end of the book, and this is sort of the Pantser way, just like as Jessie's saying, you keep stacking things up and you don't know how your characters are going to get out of it. And so, I knew something really dramatic was going to happen, but it surprised me what it was. And then I was surprised how it's resolved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I have to ask, do you leave readers on a cliffhanger at the end of The Fiery Crown? Do you get to wear that halo? The cliffhanger halo?
You haven't read it, right, Sarah? You don't know, do you? Yeah.
I've started it, but then I left I thought that we'd be going back to the office, so I started it in my galley arc, but I don't have it here. So I guess I could look up the ebook version of it, but in terms of where I am at with it, I haven't loaded it on my Kindle because I have all of this other work reading to do. Right. That's not reading, and I have clients, including yourself, being like, where are my notes? So I have not finished. No. I mean, sad fact is I haven't read an entire book until Sunday for the entire time I've been in quarantine. So that was an edit. Not a fun book. It's sad.
Oh, yeah. Well, the ending I do not think is a cliffhanger. A couple of the reviews have called it a cliffhanger, and other people who've read it are like, those people are crazy. It's not a cliffhanger. They think it's a cliffhanger because the overall 3-book arc is not yet resolved.
Okay.
But it's not nearly as cliffhangery as it could have been. When I talked with Melinda Snodgrass, she writes for Hollywood. She wrote for Star Trek Next Generation for many years. Mm-hmm. And she asked me about the ending, and she's like, I would have ended it at a much darker place. And then she started talking about like how she would do the final camera shot on this scene and the fade out. And I'm like, oh my God, can we film this? That would be so cool. Aww. But so it was not a George R.R. Martin ending. It's much more optimistic than that.
The Jeffe Kennedy ending.
There you go.
Okay, so this is our last official, big question. We still have a few of the popcorn lightning round questions to come. But, and this is kind of a fun one that's not related to these two books, but what genre have you not written in yet that you would like to write in the future? And this is going to be really hard for Jeffy because you have a number of genres under your belt. So we'll start with Jessie, and then we'll go over to Jeffy.
I would really like to write an alt history historical romance, maybe not quite steampunk, but I love reading historical, but I don't want to have every little detail about bustles and carriages and whatever, because as I've said, I can fall into a research hole, and I fear if I tried to write a historical, I would never escape the research hole. But if I could do an alt history version where I could kind of make up some of the details, I think that would be super fun.
Okay, Jeffy.
That's exactly why I don't write historical too. I'm a big fan of just getting to make things up instead of having to be faithful to history. Let's see, I have ideas for other genres. I would like to write it like a contemporary fantasy, that sort of urban fantasy. I also would like to write sort of I don't even know what it would be, like a women's fiction thriller would be fun to do.
Domestic suspense.
Yes, domestic suspense. That's good. I like that.
I mean,
this is why she's the agent.
Why I'm here. Okay, so official long questions are over, and now we're going to go into the really quick popcorn round, and let's see what our time is. We're at 31 minutes, so I think we're good. Okay, so we will do alternating. So we'll start with Jessie answering, and then Jeffy will answer, and then Jeffy will answer, and then Jessie will answer, so that we can really do the lightning round. Right. So, okay, first question, texting or talking?
Texting.
Texting.
Favorite day of the week?
Wednesday.
Friday.
Coffee, tea, or both?
Both.
Both.
Okay. Sweet or salty?
Ooh, sweet.
Sweet.
Morning maven or midnight owl?
Midnight owl.
Ooh, morning maven.
Cake or pie?
Ooh, both.
Okay, Jessie.
Pie.
Ooh, baby pandas or baby penguins?
Ooh, baby penguins.
Baby pandas.
Edits or first draft?
First draft.
Edits.
Favorite adult beverage?
Hard cider.
Wine.
Favorite agent?
Wait, let me think. It's Sarah Younger at Nancy Yost Literary Agency.
I had to do that.
Yeah. I would also agree with Jeffy that Sarah Younger at Nancy Yost Literary Agency is the best agent.
Okay. So on that note, okay, let's wrap it up with one more throwback. So again, to the Ripped Bodice, thank you so much for having us on your social media channels. I've come out of my agenty cave to chat. Jessie, do you want to tell?
We wish we were there.
For sure. Why don't you both share your book titles again and their actual release dates, and then we'll say goodbye for now.
All right.
You go, Jessie.
Okay, Chaos Reigning is the title of the book, and it comes out May 19th, which by the time you see this, it should be out. So pick it up at your local bookstore.
And mine is The Fiery Crown, and it is out on May 26th.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye. It was so fun.